So I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of today's date, which is May 20th. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Yes, of course. Commissioner Burke?
Present.
Commissioner Godek?
Here.
Commissioner Hensley?
Here.
Commissioner Ung?
Here.
And Chair Topero?
Here. All right. If you could all join me to a, Commissioner Ung, would you lead us in a salute to the flag, please?
Sure. If you would, everyone would go on mute and place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ung. So we have approve the order of the agenda and followed by the blue folder items. So we want to receive and file the blue folder items.
Or we'll first need a motion in a second and a vote on the order of the agenda. So if there's a motion to approve the order of agenda.
Yeah. I think.
Motion to approve the order of the agenda.
In a second.
In a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. So
Are there any opposed?
any opposed, right? I don't think so.
Okay, hearing none. Okay.
Very good. Okay, next is the blue folder items. So we are to receive and file the blue folder items.
Yeah, and if we can get a motion.
Yeah, motion to receive and file blue folder items.
Okay, and the second by Commissioner Godek. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's okay. The head nod, or do we need a vocal? I want to make sure we're legal.
You know what? I think that's fine. They should, for under any opposed, then they should actually say verbally if they are opposed.
Okay, so if
We're hearing none, then we're hearing none.
all right, well, so ruled, so accepted. Okay. Next, we move on to the 3 items in the consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or those pulled for discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the commission on any consent calendar item on the agenda which has not been pulled by the commission for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comment will be limited to a total of 3 minutes. So do we have, are we going to approve all, or does anybody want to pull an item?
Yeah. Chair, I'd like to pull item F2.
F2, okay, very good. So if there's nothing other to pull, could I have a motion to approve items F1 and F3?
Motion to approve items F1 and F3.
By Commissioner Godek,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Berg. All in, do we have to do the roll call for this? No.
Was there any public comment on the consent item agendas that were done?
Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah.
Public comment on consent items. Thank you. And then we can do a roll call vote. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ung?
Yes.
And Chair Topero?
Yes. So now we will discuss item F2. Commissioner Hensley, do you want to take the floor on this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is just the minutes from last month's meeting in April and the meeting before that in March. I'd like to apologize. I had some edits to the March minutes, but I didn't get them into staff until last week. And Lena, I think it was you who did a really great job revising them, but they only came out this afternoon. so I don't know if the other commissioners had a chance to review them or not. I briefly had time to skim them.
Yeah, I saw my edits were included.
So would any other commissioners be okay to approve them, even though there hasn't been a lot of time to review them? Or would we like to keep them as a draft to get more time? Because this item, again, this was the item from March that was appealed to City Council, so they actually delayed their item for another few weeks. So we could send these draft minutes if we wanted to, or we could approve them if everyone's had a chance to review them.
Does anybody need additional time on item F2? Okay, Commissioner Hensley, if you'll go ahead and make a motion then to.
Sure. Then I'll make a motion to approve item F2, including the blue folder item for the March 18th, 2021 Planning Commission minutes.
Okay, and a second from,
I'll second.
okay, Commissioner Godek. Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
and Commissioner Berg.
Yes.
And I too vote yes. So that concludes the consent calendar. So now we have public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Do we have any written requests?
We don't have written requests, but we do have an attendee here to speak.
Yes, and this is on item H1.
Correct, on non-agenda items, yes.
Okay, very good. Well, we welcome you to speak.
Okay, hi Holly, you can go ahead.
Okay, this is Holly Osborne, and I sent you most of my remarks ahead in the blue folder items, and I wanted to discuss two proposed Senate bills, SB 478 and SB 778. And SB 478, I talked about at the City Council meeting. It says if you have zoned for 3 to 7 houses on a lot, you have to allow a FAR equals 1, among other things. That's floor area ratio. And Redondo has a ton of 3 on a lots. So I just checked the number of R3 FARs from looking at Zillow, and ours are generally in the 0.65 to 0.9 range. I only saw one FAR equals 1 that was sent very recently to me on one of those big postcards from realtors, and it was a Gigundi R3 configuration, but it was on an exterior lot where you do not have to have a long driveway, so you have more buildable space. Now, you've talked in the past about some standards for open space on R2 and R3 lots, and as of yet, I don't think you have come up with any refinements. Some of our R3 lots fit the description of the triplexes described in the LA Times this Monday, calling them, quote, case in point, those sad, blocky duplexes and triplexes jammed into islands of treeless concrete. Okay, they did not say they were talking about Redondo, but boy, does that description fit some of Redondo's latest R3 endeavors. So we don't want a city to look like that, so could you finally get some guidelines on how you would plan for the open space? Now, I said at the council meeting that I didn't think we could have our setbacks and building height limits if we could not meet the FAR equals 1. And I emailed Scott Wiener about that, and he replied and quoted the bill back to me. This section shall not be construed to prohibit a local agency from imposing zoning or design standards, et cetera, et cetera. But then it has a very complicated exception clause, and it's very convoluted. I couldn't go down the bunny trail. So I would really like somebody to find out if we can keep our setbacks and stuff the way Scott claims. Otherwise, I'm going to ask everybody to oppose 478 and write Ben Allen. Okay, that's my first bill. The second one is 778. This one's quicker. This says if you have a mixed-use development and you have vacant stores, which seems most of ours do, it's no surprise, the developer can convert the ADU to an ADU if the stores have been vacant for 6 months. You know, this hasn't passed yet. We all know that the developers want to do all residential anyway, so I rather cynically predicted that for the latest mixed-use project, Legato, the developer will not even try to rent them, just wait 6 months and apply for ADU permits. Then he will have 100% residential, which is what he wanted from the start. So I put some other creative suggestions in my remarks.
And that's 3 minutes.
I'm done.
Okay. Great. That's great. You packed in quite a punch there. And as always, you are so on top of everything, and we always appreciate your inputs. So I think we could make when we get to recommendations to staff, would be appropriate for us to maybe make these recommendations. All right. Well, thank you for the input. It has been noted, and our staff is aware of this, and thank you for bringing it to our attention, as always.
And then Chair, and I'm sorry, there were actually some non-agenda item written comments that were blue folder. So I'm sorry, we had no e-comment that were for.
There was the Beach City District, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So if there could just be a motion to receive and file those.
Okay.
Yeah, motion to receive and file the written comments on non-agenda items.
By Commissioner Ong, and a second from?
Second.
From who was that?
Matthew.
With Commissioner Berg? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Ong?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So received and filed. All right, now we move on to Exparte Communications. This section is intended to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal any disclosure or ex parte communication about the following public hearings. Commissioner Hensley, any ex parte communications?
Yes, I do. For item J1, I spoke to Commissioner Berg. I also spoke to staff and one member of the public. And on item J2, I also spoke to Commissioner Berg, staff, and the public.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Godek?
None.
Okay, Commissioner Ong?
None.
Commissioner Berg?
Yes, Commissioner Hensley was my Brown Act buddy on this, on both of the projects. I visited the site and spoke to the owner of the gas station project, the 2714 Artesia. And I spoke with Stacy Kinsella about that project. That's on staff. I also visited the site and spoke to the appellants, Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman, and spoke with Commissioner Hensley about both those projects.
Great, and myself, none. So thank you for that. So now we move into the public hearings. We have for consideration accept declaration conditional use permit. And I think for 2714 Artesia Boulevard. So if staff has a presentation for us, I believe it's Stacy.
Or actually, we should do a motion to open the public.
Yes, open. Yes. So we're gonna
Motion to open the public hearing.
and a second from.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Berg. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we have, so next would be to administer the oath. If everyone who will be speaking about the 2714 Artesia Boulevard project could please take the oath, which is as follows. Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, all right, very good. So now we will take testimony from staff, applicant, and interested parties.
This is Director Forbes. We will have Sean Scully is our planning manager, and he's going to do the presentation on this agenda item.
Okay, just 1 second. Did Michael Hoban do the oath as well, or were you?
I'm sorry, I just failed to hit unmute. I do.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, 'cause I just saw the two. Okay, very good, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you, Brandy. My name is Sean Scully. I'm the planning manager with the City of Redondo Beach, and got a presentation I'll run through, so I'm going to share my screen here. Start the presentation. So tonight's item is a consideration of an exemption declaration, conditional use permit, planning commission design review, and variance for a hydrogen fueling station that at an existing service station at 2714 Artesia Boulevard. So the subject site is located at the corner of Inglewood and Artesia Boulevards. The site is zoned C2 commercial. Properties to the east and west are also C2 and retail and office uses. Properties to the north is City of Lawndale. It's a quick serve restaurant. And then properties to the south is R3 zoning, multifamily residential, which actually face Vanderbilt. This is an aerial photo, give us a much better sense of the location. This is Inglewood Avenue, Artesia Boulevard. This is the southeast corner of that intersection. This is our zoning map showing the C2 zoning with the R3 immediately south of the site. A little bit of background. So the site was developed as a service station back in 1969. CUP was granted in 1987 for the removal and building of this new station. And then another CUP in 1994 was for remediation for petroleum impacted soil. So the proposed project here, this is the physical improvements that go along with this project. There's a pump island to be located near the northwest corner of the site, and I've got a site plan to show in a minute. 2 dispensers and vent stacks and a canopy 20 feet in height at that would be the northwest corner of the subject site. Equipment storage area towards the southern property line, 8-foot-high fence and wall combination enclosure for all the equipment. Station modules at 12 feet in height with stacks, so some of the infrastructure associated with it. There's an awning for screening approximately 16.5 feet in height that runs along the top of the enclosure on the south edge of it. A little bit of site information. There's a grade change, pretty significant grade change between the station and the residential to the south, with 6-foot grade difference at the sidewalk, which increases as you go eastward along the site. The rear property line varies in height. The existing wall is approximately 11.5 feet to 14.5 feet as you move east along the site. So here's our site plan. This is Inglewood running along the west side, Artesia Boulevard on the north side. This is the convenience store and existing service bays run along the eastern edge of the property. There's the existing island canopy with 12 temporary parking spaces at the existing pump islands. And this is the proposed pump island out just along the edge of the existing landscaping. And then the actual equipment and the hydrogen fuel storage is along the southern property line. These are the remaining parking spaces, and we'll get into the parking in a minute, and 2 proposed new parking spaces along parallel to Artesia Boulevard. So this is a rendering. It's a great perspective from the intersection looking south, I guess, east at the subject property. And this is the canopy and pump island. Then we have the actual equipment behind the screening, fencing, and walls. And then this is the property above and beyond. And this is the existing fencing back here. So everything is essentially below the existing fence line between the residential to the south and the subject property. Here's another rendering that shows from the west, Inglewood Avenue looking at the subject property, the pump island again, and then the equipment enclosure and hydrogen fuel equipment behind the fencing and walls. These are just some examples of equipment enclosures in other locations. These are in San Francisco. And then we're just going to move into the three entitlements that are before you tonight. First, the conditional use permit, general plan, residents serving commercial services along a main commercial corridor. The pump island, there are setback requirements, special to service stations that require a 16-foot setback, and those pump islands out near the intersection comply with that 16-foot setback. The canopy is below 30 feet building height limit. The equipment enclosure meets the allowable 8-foot fencing. There are 3 access points as we looked at. I didn't point those out on the site plan, but there's 2 on Artesia Boulevard and 1 on Inglewood Avenue. A parking study notes adequate parking for the site. And we'll get into a little bit more on the parking in a minute. There's no foreseeable impacts to adjacent commercial properties, nor the residential properties to the south. The grade change with residential, so little to no visual impact, as that residential site's a lot higher to the south. Acoustical analysis, there's a slight increase in only 1 dB above the ambient noise level, and that is allowed in our zoning standards, in the noise standards in the noise ordinance. We have a 5 dB allowance when you have commercial adjacent to residential use, and this is only a 1 dB increase. Planning Commission design review. We maintain 8-foot minimum driveway aisles for 2-way traffic. There's no natural terrain, but condition to improve the landscaping. Futuristic in design with green and white colors. While in contrast to existing gas station, the contrast highlights the new environmentally friendly fuel option. The equipment enclosure, in contrast, is earth tones and much more muted coloring. And then the awning is green to match the pump islands. So the variance for parking. The service station, so the reason we need a variance here, I'll walk through the parking requirements. There's service stations, 3 parking spaces per service bay requirement, and there's 4 bays, meaning we need 12 parking spaces total. There are 13 existing spaces on site, but only 5 will remain, plus the 2 proposed parking spaces parallel to Artesia Boulevard. So we asked that the applicant provide a comprehensive parking study. They looked at parking utilization on the site for 2 weekdays and 2 weekend days. And the maximum during the survey parking study was 6 spaces utilized, not including, there's essentially 12 temporary parking spaces at the pump islands. There are 7 proposed parking spaces. So 6 being utilized, 7 are proposed. So we feel we have adequate parking to accommodate this use. And this parking study was reviewed and approved by the city traffic engineer. So the variance findings, there are special circumstances applicable to the property. And in this case, it's location and surroundings. The location and site configuration of the existing station with the fixed driveway locations, the 2-way drive aisles for vehicle and particularly fuel tanker trucks significantly limits the ability to accommodate the additional pump island and associated hydrogen fueling equipment and still maintain the driveway aisles and parking. And so the equipment was located where the parking used to be, hence the need for the variance for parking. Parking adjustment does not constitute a granting of special privileges. That's another finding for the variance to be approved. Parking adjustments are accommodated for businesses when parking studies demonstrate adequate parking is maintained. And this approval is specific to the specific circumstances of this site. And third finding for a variance, the granting of this variance in parking still supports the general plan to have residents serving commercial uses along this major corridor. So some of the coordination that was done, there was a lot of front end work. This project has been in the pipeline for over a year. Pre-application meeting, in April of 2020. Following the September application submittal, materials routed to all our departments, particularly with hydrogen. The fire department was involved, had a lot of comments regarding emergency shutoffs, leak detection. So a lot of those elements are incorporated into this project. Engineering division, really had a lot of comments on ADA, curb ramp, corner easement, and all the driveways to be reconstructed with pedestrian pathways. All these elements are conditions of approval within the proposed resolution. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the exemption declaration, approve the conditional use permit, approve the Planning Commission design review, and approve the variance for a new hydrogen fuel station and related equipment at 2714 Artesia Boulevard. And that concludes staff presentation. And I'm available for questions, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Sean. I have a couple of questions. It is the first hydrogen station in Redondo Beach, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and so this is kind of a milestone. And I'm curious, how many hydrogen vehicles, do we have any way of tracking how many, does anybody in Redondo own a hydrogen vehicle, and would they have to, would the city even know about it?
Well, we don't track, ownership of vehicles, hydrogen fuel vehicles. We do know, just a little more context.
Yes.
The governor's office has initiated numerous programs to provide for infrastructure for alternative fuels like hydrogen across the state. There's many grant programs, so there's a lot of support. I'm sure the applicant could speak at length to the programs in place trying to promote alternative fuel and the access to alternative fuel.
Okay. And then I wanted to find out the height of the awning. Is that higher than the wall, the south wall?
It does not appear. It appears to be right at the equal height with that south wall,
Okay.
the residential from the.
All right, because I think that would be a concern. And isn't this the station where the awning flew off, or where was the one that flew off was in Torrance? Remember, there was the winds that we had, like.
Yeah, right. I think that was right down at our Shell station at Beryl and Prospect.
Okay, Beryl and Prospect. Yeah, that's it, Beryl and Prospect. So I guess I don't know. I don't know what we have in terms of, permitting guidelines for awnings, but obviously.
Yeah.
It's kind of like at a crest there before it goes back down. So you got the wind just, burrowing through Artesia Boulevard. And so I guess I hope that the awning is well constructed, because we wouldn't want that thing flying. That's a lesson learned. And then you said it was a 16-foot setback, correct?
Correct.
And so that's the same whether it's a gas pump or a hydrogen. There's no differentiation at the state or federal level.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. And then if you could put the rendering up,
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Yeah.
This one here, just a small detail, kind of funny, but looking at the signage, what I know is your standard signage. There's nothing that indicates hydrogen. The green is for diesel, which is confusing with the green for hydrogen. I'm talking about the signage where it says mobile at the top.
Oh, yeah. Here.
And the signage has a requirement at the gap underneath for visibility, right?
Yes.
So they're going to, I guess, add another line for hydrogen to advertise it more, or, I mean, it's a small thing, but or is this standard for gas stations, the signage?
I think we can ask the applicant for what law requirements are for hydrogen fuel advertising. I think their pricing is a lot different as it's a new fuel on the market, and how that's handled. That's a really good question. I think the applicant would be able to address how.
Yeah. Well, it's nice it's close to the freeway too, so people, coming through can, they'll good to pull them into Redondo. Commissioner Berg has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some information on what I learned visiting the site and talking to the landlord without opinion. Just some of the factual stuff that I learned. Commissioner Toporov, just to tell you about the sign. There are restrictions in the covenants as a mobile service station that preclude them from using advertisements, from what the landlord told me, for non-mobile products. Because I did ask him one of the questions about the pumping stations. There's a tremendous amount of room on there's 3 bays in the center. There's a tremendous amount of room in the middle to potentially put that pumping station there where you would fuel up your diesel or your regular gasoline car. And the landlord told me that he had approached ExxonMobil and they had given him tacit approval, although not in writing, that he could do that, but there were restrictions to move under an awning that was considered, mobile proper products, so to speak. Also, one of the things that the landlord said was that this is a tremendous cut through as people are driving north on Inglewood and they hit the red light, they'll cut through the gas station there. And because of the angle of the way that is, you really don't need to take a hard turn. And he was pretty confident that putting the pumps there would slow that down. He said he's experienced 2 very bad accidents there since he's been an owner. He's put a lot of money into the property, he's told me. And the back area where the equipment actually goes, from what I understand, the delivery trucks are a little smaller than traditional fueling trucks, gas trucks, and that the tank is actually delivered. And of course, the hydrogen guys here can jump on me if I'm wrong about this, but the tanks are delivered solidly, almost like a propane tank, put in and then removed. So you're not, blocking up traffic right at that pretty heavy turn in right there with the trucks. So that's just some information that I learned. It does look like those houses, different than the rendering here, are a little closer to that venting. So that was my concern, which I would like to talk about the noise. It's a very noisy intersection, but it's almost a white noise unless a heavy truck comes through and you hear a smash, which, or a bang or something to that effect. I know the 1 decibel from what's in the report increase, but what does that actually mean? Is that 1 decibel that goes, a whistle? Is it white noise? That was really the one major concern that I had, because it seems like it's pretty close to those people in the back.
Thank you so much for that. It's interesting because in past projects, we've had limitations to the hours of delivery. And because this is such a close to residential area, I don't remember seeing any language about, deliveries can't be done like at 2 a.m. So I don't know if that's, does staff have any visibility on that?
I know that we have done some research on the fueling station. So I don't think it's so much the issue of when it's being delivered, and I'll have staff correct me if I got this wrong, but it's more when somebody's fueling that the compressor will come on during that time. So it's while they're fueling. So if you wanted to set limitations, you could also set the limitations on deliveries, which I don't think would be an issue. But then also you could set, there have been hydrogen fueling stations that have set limitations on the hours of operation to end by 10 p.m. so that no pumping could occur after 10 p.m. and then you'd have some morning hour for starting. So I know that staff did, our senior planner did some research on that. So if that is something that the commissioners are interested in, that's something we can consider as a condition.
And is there conditions for gas stations in our code or guidelines as to when gasoline trucks can what do you say? Anyway, put the gas into from the tankers?
I don't believe so, but it's not uncommon to put a restriction on that if there's some sensitivity nearby. Or I think I recall on one of the recent gas stations we did up at Inglewood and Manhattan Beach Boulevard, I believe we had a condition on there related to prohibiting the fueling trucks to come on site and do deliveries during peak hours because of the
congestion. So it's not
avoid those peak hour traffic times.
Okay, because of the traffic more than because, okay, all right. Well, that's good to know. I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you so much, Commissioner Berg, for bringing these points up. Anyone else, or shall we hear from the applicant? Commissioner Godek.
I just wanted to talk about the noise for a second. 3 decibel change from ambient noise is barely perceptible. So a 1 decibel change from ambient noise would not be a perceptible change.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, anyone else on the commission? Or otherwise, we'll move on to the applicant. Okay, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you so much to the commissioners and to staff. We've been working very closely with staff for quite some time now. We feel that we have provided here one of the best possible solutions for the city of Redondo Beach residents to be able to access hydrogen fuel for hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. We would like to address your concerns. I did hear Mr. Scully say that he would like us to get into a little bit more details about how this is going on. So if you give me just a moment, I will display my screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Oh, all right, there you go.
Okay, let me see how it'll allow me to share screen right there. Screen 2. Thank you very much.
We're not seeing the screen.
Uh-oh. Chair. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Now, do we need to receive and file this?
Yes, ma'am. It was submitted. It was
It was in the package. Yes. Never mind. Yes.
No problem. We already know where it is. We already know that we're adding hydrogen fuel per the discussion from staff. We've seen the 2 different awnings. You did have a question about this awning and whether it was going to exceed the height of this fence in the background, and no, it is not. That awning was planned in order to make sure, as you can see in this display, it comes up a little bit at an angle, but this awning, if you come straight across, it ends right at the top of our awning. So, I'm sorry, this wooden fence ends right at the top of our awning. So no, it does not exceed the height. And this is actually done for both a visual potential barrier. We couldn't actually do a visual study to see if the line of sight from these windows will be or won't be completely impacted at all by our equipment. We believe that their fencing will mostly screen all of our equipment, including our awning. But we put the awning just in case so that it would be something more similar to a hedge rather than something that looked like a piece of industrial equipment right next to their fence.
I was talking about the awning on top of the pumps.
Oh, it will not exceed the height of the existing awning.
All right.
No. Yes, no problem. I apologize. I was on the wrong awning.
No, but that's both awnings. Yeah.
Yes. California did adopt AB 118 Alternative Fuels Vehicle Technologies, which provides for both funding for the construction of stations like this. It also provides for the funding of people acquiring these vehicles. So there are state incentives for people who buy the vehicles. We do not, unfortunately, have any way to track exactly where these people live, From our side, the state tracks them in vehicle registrations, but they don't give us that information, so we couldn't tell you whether there are any or aren't any registered specifically in Redondo Beach. We do know that right now, as of the beginning of this year, the most recent data that we could obtain, hydrogen vehicles currently make up less than 0.06% of the vehicles on the road total throughout the state. And this is the reason why the state is so encouraging this type of infrastructure, because of the fact that they have agreed to and set forth in motion by 2035 they're going to stop the sale of brand new gasoline and diesel vehicles. They're focusing on electric vehicles as the future. Hydrogen is the most similar experience to an electric vehicle that anybody can buy it and operate in a vehicle today. So it is a zero emission electric vehicle that offers the closest driving experience to our current vehicles that we've been driving all of our lives. So it is expected to be one of the easiest to adapt to for people who are coming into this market. But right now, again, with 0.06% of the vehicles on the road, that's going to be very minimal use at this given time. There are a lot of different federal encouragements as well as private industry encouragements, such as I believe Toyota is offering fuel cards with the purchases of their Mirais. I'm not sure if any of the others are doing the same thing, but it helps for the people who are buying a new technology vehicle to get 3 years worth of free fuel in order to operate that vehicle and sustain themselves while adjusting to this new technology. Hydrogen fuel stations are located throughout the state. Currently, on the left, you'll see as they're spread out, they're in the most populated areas of the state. In the Los Angeles area, there are a number of them both in existence and in operation. Green stations are in operation, yellow stations are in development. And so right now, I believe there's 45 or approximately 45 stations in operation, and there's another 40 to 45 under development. And those would bring us closer to where we were by goals set in 2007, or where the state wanted us to be by goals set in 2007 when they adopted AB 118, but it won't get us to where we were supposed to be by 2020. So we're still a little bit behind, even if we catch up this year with the stations that are currently proposed to meet the state's goals and to strive towards that 2035 daylight, I guess, or sunset on the selling of natural or fossil fuel vehicles. The benefits of hydrogen, again, it's zero emission. It meets the federal and state standards for both incentives and HOV access. So people get to commute faster when they buy these vehicles. It is supported by AB 118 and as well as the AQMD, Southern California Air Quality Management District, feels very strongly about this type of technology and has actually gotten into development of the heavy duty technology for another program that we're also working on, but that is specifically to replace diesel trucks going to and from the ports. So this is not only a push to get these type of technology into passenger vehicles, which will be the only vehicles using this facility that we're proposing here in Redondo Beach, but it's also a wave of pushing into the heavier polluters, such as the diesel semi trucks, who will be slowly being switched, and for the ports, they're quickly being switched. From what I understand, there are many vehicles out there. Again, I did a little bit of research on this one, the Toyota Mirai, and they are offering a number of different incentives. They are launching a new vehicle this year There are others out there that are in just about every line of vehicle that are offered. They're offering at least one hydrogen electric fuel cell vehicle, and are planning more as they adapt, because all of the major producers of vehicles right now, major manufacturers, are in the process of switching from fossil fuel platforms to electric platforms. And they will have a variety of different electric platforms. Plug-in electrics as well as hydrogen electrics are two of the most popular today. And so we expect those to grow over the next 15 to 20 years as the state switches over and encourages these types of vehicles and the use of these vehicles. The benefit to society is air quality. Air quality right now is impacted 41% by the vehicles on the road. So our pollution, or the air we breathe, the pollution that we breathe in Southern California, is 41% created by vehicles. The more we get the vehicles off the road that are polluting, and the more we get the vehicles on the road that don't pollute, the sooner not only we, but our children and our descendants beyond them will be breathing clean air. Safety of Iwatani is that they were established in 1930, and they started dealing in hydrogen as a fuel in 1941. They are one of the oldest and most renowned industrial players within this market, and they have a very high quality concern going forward, making sure that they are doing the right thing, not just for their industry and for their business, but also for in their opinion, the world, because this is such a beneficial fuel when it comes to the fact that it will allow for transportation without pollution. Beyond that, this is my contact information if any of you need it or want it to find out more information. I do have your questions related to, I have a general answer for your structure of the awning. It will be reviewed under the structural code, building code for permits. Those codes are adopted regularly, and the main one that impacts awnings, the way that I understand it, is a wind load. So it will be studied for the wind load at this area and what the building department requires for specifically for this area of Redondo Beach. So I would presume that it will be built to be strong enough to withstand your winds. There was a question about advertising the fuel. We will not be advertising on the fuel sign itself, as stated by another commissioner. That is not allowed by mobile. They will not allow us to advertise on this. And right now, the way that the state is operating, they have not adapted the code to require alternative fuels who are co-locating and sharing stations to advertise in this manner. Most of these stations are found via an app. That app gives the map locations specifically of all of these that you see here. And so on that app, when you're looking for a station, you also find out what their last advertised price of fuel was. So it gives that to you in a manner of it's more directly right to the point of sale of the consumer who needs it, rather than advertising it to everybody who's on the street who doesn't have an inkling or a need to know at this given time. As time goes on, that could adapt, and if it does, we'd have to come back and ask for permission from the city to modify the sign. But right now, we would not be requesting any sort of modifications to their signs. The only signs that we have are to advertise that we are a hydrogen station, and it is Iwatani, so that people know that it's separate from mobile. Rather than go in and ask mobile questions, there will be information there on how to contact Iwatani if the patrons there have any questions or concerns related to that. So with that, hours of operations and deliveries limitations. The station itself will restrict us and restricts themselves from taking any sort of deliveries of fuel during peak hours. Peak hours are when most people are out getting gas. And so stations will not allow for any deliveries to their C-stores. They will not allow for any deliveries of their own fuels, and they will not allow anybody renting from them to deliver any fuels, or leasing to them in this instance, to deliver any fuels during peak hours. So it would not be a problem for our vehicles. They would not be there during peak hours to do deliveries in general. And at that, I will close my presentation and ask if there's any additional questions that I didn't get to.
Thank you so much for this added detail and answering the questions that we have. It's quite admirable to be, I mean, from a business point of view, to be putting in all the infrastructure for this when only 0.06% of vehicles in our state are hydrogen, but I'm sure the state is probably providing some nice grants and things to make this happen, because from a business point, it doesn't seem to make sense at 0.06, but that's great. Thank you so much. I believe we have a question from Commissioner Ung. I'm not sure who was first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, for a very comprehensive presentation, Mr. Steckler. I was wondering, Fiedler Group, are you the owner of the station, or are you the one that's designing and putting in the hydrogen station? I wasn't sure.
Oh, Fiedler Group is an engineering company. We do not own the stations. We do not operate the stations. We just design them and work with them to get them constructed. We have been designing and constructing stations since 1957. So you have two very powerful players in the fuel industry here presenting this for you this evening.
So
Okay,
Iwatani is then renting from Mobile the space?
It's a lease. It's a lease. I don't know all of the technicalities of it, but yes, they are leasing the area in order to put this in, and they will be operating separately.
Okay. All right.
Yes, the owner of the property who I met with told me that that's what this is. He's the landlord in essence.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Very good. Commissioner Hensley.
Okay.
Oh,
Can I? I'm not done yet. Thank you. In fact, Mr. Steckler would actually be the one that I'll direct my questions to, because it wasn't, I'm not not real familiar with hydrogen delivery. Regarding the equipment storage area, what is the source of the noise? Is it a compressor? Is it, pumps? What exactly is making the noise?
The noise is basically made when the compressors are on, and during the end of the cycle of fueling. At the end of a cycle of fueling, you will do a hard connect on a hydrogen fueled electric vehicle. So you're not touching anything while it's actually fueling. You're standing back. You've connected everything and hit the buttons, and it starts. It does its own fueling process. It talks to the car. The car tells it when it's full, it stops. There is a little bit of fuel left in the hose that comes from the point of the hose connection valve all the way down to the point of the car connection. And so that small amount of hydrogen on every fueling would be released through the venting stacks. Now, those venting stacks are here. They're located out here, and we did that specifically so that inaudible sound, even if there was anything, say it's a quiet evening. Right now, everything that we have shows that we're not going to be audible in any way, shape, or form from ambient noise as is there. But say it's a quiet evening, and it's more quiet than what is currently seen as ambient noise levels. It's still going to be barely audible because it's so far away from any residential use that the fueling occurs here, and that venting clicking sound that was discussed in the report happens here. And also look at the fact that that's right here in the report itself. as well as if you look at the noise that's generated around our equipment during fueling, the awning actually helps to deflect that, and it doesn't go back and reach. The higher decibels do not go back or are not predicted to go back and reach the residences. They're predicted to stop quite some distance away from the residences, right at the awning, and that's only because it has to be a louvered awning.
So it's okay. So that's a compressor. You said that it makes noise after the delivery of the hydrogen. I'm just trying to figure out what is the noise that is closest to the residents.
This location here, behind a 12-foot high CMU wall and a 6-foot high block wall, is a compressor, or actually two compressor units, and they're both actually enclosed in a steel box. So the only thing that you really that only makes any noise is the fans, the venting fans for the compressors, the way that I understand it.
So is a compressor? Is it kind of like, I'm just trying to figure, like when I have folks that come, roofing or things like that, they have a little air compressor. Is that the type of a compressor that it would sound like? I'm just trying to figure out. There are different types of compressors. I'm just trying to figure out what the noise is.
I've never actually heard it, so I can't respond to what it's similar to. But I can say that the study says that it's not going to be noticeable to the neighbors. I don't know specifically what type of a compressor that it would be, but I know that it's enclosed because it's on its own enclosure, and then we've added the wall is there as well, and the wall deflects the sound, and then we've added the awning for that little bit of extra barrier.
Yeah, because we could talk about the science and the decibels, but really, when you're sleeping and it's quiet, it's not so much the level of the noise. It's just the turning on and turning off of a noise that really impacts someone's ability to sleep. So,
and to that point, this figure is the daytime and nighttime noise contours with the project. So this is with us operating, and it, forgive me, this study took into account like we were operating 24/7, but at full capacity, not at 0.06% of the cars on the road, which is what we will be operating at now, but at 15 years from now, when everybody's driving this type of a vehicle and it's just operating. Excuse me. And this shows that the noise at the street, the noise back here, and the noise generated here is very compressed and stationary in these two locations right at the equipment themselves, because the equipment is enclosed and it's screened. And so these contours say that it's not going to be, and again, as you said, this is the science behind it, and that's all I have because I haven't experienced it myself, but I have to trust the science behind it because that's what we all rely upon right now. And so it to me, I would say that it should not be an impact at that point in time. But you never know how anybody has a perception of something.
Sure. And how long is that awning? Does it span the entire length of the equipment area?
No, sir. No, sir. It goes about midway. I think it's 9 feet. I'd have to go back in and look at our specific plans. But it goes to about midway. It goes to just over these two raised stacks right there. The equipment itself is shown here in a brown box because it is in a brown enclosure, as I said. And then the stacks there are the stacks for the actual fans. That's not for the hydrogen at all. That's for the actual fans. This is the off venting for our fueling purposes. So it will go to just beyond the fan vent stacks.
So
Heating and cooling fans.
okay, so since the awning provides some sort of acoustic shielding from the compressor noise, would it make sense to have the awning extend the entire length of the equipment box such that the noise doesn't escape through the sides?
Well, I don't think so, sir, because without the awning, we first submitted this without the awning, and we passed all criteria even without the awning. The awning was added more as a visual barrier, and it happened to have an acoustical benefit, but it wasn't added specifically for acoustical noise. It was added for visual barrier, and it just happened to add into bringing us under. So we were at, I believe it was about 2.5% in the original design. Once we added the awning, that's when it came down to 1 as far as the decibel increase. And so without the awning, we still meet code standards and we're still compliant. So I don't think that it would be beneficial to do, and it would be more difficult to visually screen at that point. It would, as far as the angles and everything go, it would have to go more flat, and that's not something that with the equipment and everything is doable because of the maintenance. Future maintenance on the equipment precludes it from blocking any maintenance on top.
Okay, so if you were to make the awning longer, it would obstruct access for maintenance purposes. Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's a fair response. Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and regarding the signage, it's kind of my understanding that the reason why we have gas prices listed is because that's kind of the law for gas and diesel. And I'm not exactly sure whether hydrogen has the same laws that say you gotta put it in. I passed by that hydrogen station on 190th and near Crenshaw, and I don't think they have any prices. So
No.
So you probably wouldn't have to add anything, in terms of from a legal standpoint.
You're correct. It's Business and Professionals Code 13531 that requires the service stations to go in and actually provide the fuel prices for the top 3 grades of fuel, and then to add in diesel as well. But that is because they don't have a means by which to tell the prices of the fuel that they're going to get other than driving by. I mean, most of the stations have there's no apps for stations because they've so far it came into existence so soon that there was no need for apps. This station is locatable by an app to anybody with one of those vehicles, and it is the latest fuel and the status of the station actually can be accessed from what I understand off of that app, because one of my old coworkers bought one of these vehicles, piqued my curiosity in it. I checked them out a little bit, and so it's it becomes, forgive me, I lost that train. It's fueling like we do now. It's environmentally friendly, and it's something that is per code standards and per studies that have been done compliant per your code. So my opinion would be that it would be something beneficial for your community.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I always thought that hydrogen fuel cells would have had an advantage over plug-in electric vehicles. But I guess the plug-ins had a little bit better marketing.
It was easier to adapt the technologies into the plugin, I think, and so that's why it was the first out. But because of the fact that this is the closest use to 3 to 5 minutes, you pull up right now, you spend 3 to 5 minutes fueling your vehicle, right? You pull up to a hydrogen facility, you spend 3 to 5 minutes, you're fully powered. You can go full distance in 3 to 5 minutes. You don't have to wait half an hour for an 80% charge. And yeah, they're going to get that better later. So I agree with you. It's something that I would have believed to have already had taken off better. But once the infrastructure is there, because putting in a place at a parking stall for somebody to stop at a parking stall and just charge for half an hour, 45 minutes is a lot easier than designing something like this and finding stations where it can be done. And so we're a little bit behind that section, but I believe that we'll take off beyond it once the infrastructure that California has envisioned and is working on right now is going to be in place.
Okay. Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for such interesting questions, and we're all learning as we break new ground here. It's actually kind of very exciting. The first station in Redondo Beach coming to Planning Commission. I believe Commissioner Hensley had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a question. Actually, some of them got answered by Commissioner Ung's question, so thank you. I had a couple more questions on the hydrogen refueling of the station itself, so not the vehicle, but the station. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Like, how long does it take? And I heard a little bit from Commissioner Berg about, it's more like propane than gasoline. So just my questions are, how often does that occur, and how long does it take to swap out or refuel the station of hydrogen?
Our proposal here would use gaseous hydrogen. It would take about the same amount of time for our offload as it would take for an offload of a tanker of gas or diesel. They can't happen at the same time because they're both in the same place. So we'll have to coordinate that as we go forward, or Iwatani would have to coordinate that as they go forward with mobile and at the station to make sure that the two deliveries don't occur at the same time. We're a little bit more out of the way actually than the existing tanker truck path would be for where they offload. We're farther tucked up against the side. Our offload is at the far end from the visual that you have now. It's at the far end of our enclosure, and it would be a similar connection to the vehicles, to where it's a solid connection hose on either side, where it's a controlled connection electronically by the equipment. The person driving the vehicle comes up, he parks, he gets his cone set for safety, or she, forgive me, he or she gets their cone set up for safety. They connect the hose, they program what they have to program, and it's an automated transfer of fuel. We do not swap out tanks. Those tanks are structurally set and sound, so we couldn't do that on a regular basis.
Okay, so I haven't watched a tanker truck refuel a gas station in a long time. Any idea how long that takes? Or 5 minutes, 15 minutes?
It's approximately 20 to 30
minutes.
With all the connections and everything. The transfer doesn't, from what I understand, doesn't take that long. But I mean, with they pull up, they get positioned, they get out of the truck. It's about 20 to 30 minutes before they get back in their truck and they're taking off.
Okay, and would that truck have to be in front of the new proposed structure at the rear of the lot, or would it be like kind of pull up beside that, I presume, or would it go past that to the parking spots to park and connect? How does that look like?
If I'm remembering correctly, forgive me, I'd have to go back to that diagram, but it's in the plans that were submitted.
Okay. I can pull that up if we need to.
Yeah, if you could.
We're
I'm
at
looking
the
at
other
the-
end, so it would be potentially blocking parking, not the entrance at the driveway. It would be on the other side, impacting the internal operations, not the operations of people driving off the street. So it'll be farther away. But go ahead,
Sure, maybe,
pull that up on my share.
no problem. Yeah, Mr. Scully, if you could maybe pull up, I'm looking at
Yeah,
page 110 of the packet, or if you have a different page. But page 110 shows me a pretty good view of the
I've got the architectural plan
building.
here. Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking at C 2.2, equipment enclosure. That's all helpful.
Okay, here's C1. That's the overall site plan. This is the equipment enclosure, C2.
Right.
2.2 shows a different view. If you could go to that one.
And I can show you on both of these where we.
2.2.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Is this a good picture to explain
that's
it?
fine. That's fine. Yes, sir. If you look at the perspective view E up in the upper left, you have the awning out at the right with the two compressors. Then next to that you have the storage for fuel. Those storage canisters adjacent to that. There's a little offset in the fencing right there, and there's a little cabinet right there. You're circling it. That is our fuel point. So from that will be the back of the truck, or within about, I think it's 10 feet of that will be the back of the truck, and it'll go into the site, not out. It'll go towards the parking, not towards the street. From what I remember out of the circulation. Okay, understood.
And how often does this occur? I know, I'm sure it depends on how many cars refueled, but is this roughly, once a month or once a week, or how often does this size hydrogen tank need to be refueled?
Right now, it's estimated to be like when they start. It is estimated to be once every week to 2 weeks. As time goes on, that's going to increase. There's no way to predict how much it's going to increase, but it right now its impact would be about one delivery a week. If it's not, it may be one delivery every 2 weeks, even when it starts out, and then until it grows, and it'll have to grow into even one delivery per week potentially. But that depends on the city of Redondo Beach and the citizens there.
Okay.
If there's only 2.6% of vehicles, I don't think there's going to be a lot of refuel at the beginning. Very, very
True.
Yeah, I own an electric car, and I think what you'll find is that people will go to the station, not the other way around, meaning that people from the area will use the station, because the only other one is in Torrance, the next closest one that I could see. So.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that leads right into my next question. Are there any other hydrogen stations in the queue or planned for Redondo Beach that you're aware of, without divulging top secret information?
I don't know of any, but I do know that the state's goal is one every 10 miles. So potentially there could be, and if not in Redondo, then near Redondo. But I don't. There's a lot of different factors that go into citing these stations, and I'm not directly involved in that, so I can't speak to it.
Okay. And,
do we need to do any, if I could just interject here for a second.
Of course.
Do we need to interject any new code in the planning guidance or anything specifically for this? Are we well covered in our code for this? Because this is like the beginning, so we may not have the code infrastructure, because obviously there's going to be a lot more of this. I just wanted to ask that question before we move on.
In my opinion, no, and the reason would be this is, as the applicant has stated, this is so similar to the operation and logistics of existing gas stations. It's really it's covered within, all the elements that could potentially be, impacts or need to be addressed are covered in our service station requirements in our special use regulation section of the zoning ordinance. So I think we're pretty well positioned to deal with these stations going forward with our current zoning standards, just because they are so, the operation and deployment and utilization of these facilities is so similar.
Okay, I'll just say that, we'll be relying on staff that if there is something, then, that we do want to modify code, because this is going to be a new wave, so we need to be prepared.
Yeah, certainly. It's a good point.
Yeah, so just keep your antennas up. Commissioner Burr. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, Sheldon. I actually have one more question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheldon.
Okay.
Had it. My apologies, Chair. Yeah, one more question. I'm not sure if this is for the applicant or Mr. Seckler. My question is the current location on the corner for the actual refueling. Were any other locations considered at this site?
Yes, sir. We did review 2 locations under the canopy as well. Those 2 locations under the canopy were rejected by mobile because of branding conflicts and corporate conflicts. So we were basically told that if we want to be on this site, we have to be somewhere out other than underneath their canopy. And so we looked very hard and found this area of the site that was underutilized where we could fit and meet code standards as far as the requirements for this pumps and everything else.
Okay. Is the site owner here with us tonight or not?
We have a representative from Iwatani. I don't know if the site owner's there.
Okay. Just staff.
I do not know if the property owner is here tonight.
Okay. Maybe Commissioner Berg, do you remember the property owner's name?
No, I didn't know. I forgot. What name was. Sorry.
No problem. That's okay.
Okay. He did say he would be here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Great. Thank you for those. Commissioner Berg.
Yeah, Commissioner Hensley asked the question, which was if there was another site considered. So it sounds like, just apologies to my fellow commissioners, I was just relaying what the property owner told me about how this was working. It sounds like there's a little confusion between him and the group putting this in. So he seems to think that he can put the pumps underneath, and that he also seems to think that that the tank is going to be put in and it's removed. And so I'm just letting you know. I mean, we had a very long conversation about it. So you might want to confirm that with him if he thinks that there's going to be a truck there that's going to be 30 minutes. He does not think that. He was very clear with me. So that's it.
Okay, very good. Well, if those are, if that is it, then maybe we need a motion to close the public hearing at this point.
Actually, you do, I'm sorry, Chair, we do have one person signed up to speak. I believe actually maybe 2 people. So let me go ahead and call on them right now. The first one is Gia Vassin. Gia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Gia Vason. I'm with the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, and I sit in the Zero Emission Vehicle Market Development Unit. I'm here speaking in support of this item. We work in our unit really closely in accelerating infrastructure deployment for both charging stations and hydrogen stations. And the state of California is really committed to transition to zero emission vehicles, as Ben's presentation shared. We have an executive order aiming for 100% zero emission vehicle for passenger cars and also for heavy duty vehicles a little farther out. The May revision to the 2021-2022 budget includes $3.2 billion in a ZEV package over the next 3 years. And the state also has a target of 200 hydrogen stations by 2025. So as was previously stated, we do currently have 47 stations open. There are about 50 more currently in development, and we have 80 more that have been approved for state funding. So there was a question around how many fuel cell cars do we have, and a fraction of a half of a percent. That equates to about 10,400 fuel cell cars on the road today. And in recent months, we've really seen record sales of vehicles, and the infrastructure remains the limiting factor to adoption. It's not for lack of people wanting these vehicles. So, and Ben mentioned that, you know, the auto manufacturer providing fueling cards, which they are, that even applies to certified pre-owned vehicles for Toyota, which is a pretty great incentive for people who can't afford a new vehicle but want to get a used vehicle. They're really great pricing. So anyway, there's a lot of opportunity here for growth in the market. And nearly all the stations currently have received state support, nearly 100% of them. Iwatani's proposed station at Redondo Beach is actually one of the first that's 100% privately funded. And this is a really promising sign for market development. We're looking as a state to see how does this market become self-sustaining, and we're seeing that pathway now. So I think that's just really awesome, and we're very excited about that. Also, Iwatani has been an excellent partner. They are committed and they're collaborative with the state, and they have the expertise needed to really successfully develop this site and operate the hydrogen station. And I've seen time and again going above and beyond to make the driver experience better, to address issues that come up with the station quickly, and so we've been very pleased with the partners that they've been so far. And so, but all of that said, this really all happens at the local level in forward-thinking cities like Redondo Beach. So thank you to the city staff for all of your work, and to the commission for your consideration. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Hensley?
Is there someone else to speak?
There's one more, I believe one more person. Let me find out. Peter Whittingham. Peter, did you want to speak on this item?
Peter, you're muted. We can't hear you if you need to unmute yourself if you wish to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, while Peter's trying to figure out how to unmute himself, why don't we move to Commissioner Hensley's question?
Thank you. Yeah, if the next step is to close the hearing, then I have a couple more questions. Maybe these are for staff that I thought up while listening to the presentation and such. The conditions attached in the staff report, can you kind of walk through how those conditions came to be, or how those conditions were decided in the CUP?
Yeah, absolutely. These conditions came about from, of course, the Planning Division's review, trying to minimize any of the impacts that we could perceive happening with the addition of this hydrogen fuel facility at this location, and really also our coordination with the other departments, particularly fire department, engineering department. And this is a combination of each department's concerns and requirements in order to allow the project to move forward and to adequately address, any issues, particularly fire, accessibility, and site circulation, compatibility in the planning division. So that's how we culminate those.
Okay. Does the Wheeler City have any experience with any hydrogen things before this?
Actually, I have a lot of experience with hydrogen fuel. Before I came to Redondo Beach, I spent a couple of years working on some of those initial hydrogen fuel stations that were deployed across the state, and worked with the governor's planning and research. So I personally had a lot of knowledge, and we knew right away, the issues were noise and fire. And we pulled in those two disciplines. Noise was us, fire, and then just wanted to make sure we had everybody on board to deal with this land use.
Okay. One question on the parking study. I know you went through the results of it, but it's basically you guys took some measurements of actual conditions, and then based on that, said there's a
to look. It was, I want to say November 2020.
Okay, so end of last year.
Yes.
Okay. And one question on the noise study: if when we talk about dB, like a +1 dB or 5 dB difference, is that a level of noise, or how does like kind of the sound of the noise affect that measurement in dB? Meaning, like the high pitched noise at 60 dB sound different than a low pitched noise at 60 dB. Like, are they measurements of noise, or are they?
Yeah, not.
Would all 60 dB noise be the same? And if anyone has a question, I have no idea.
I don't want to. I've read a lot of acoustical reports. How frequency impacts decibels, I don't have that knowledge.
Okay.
But it's a standard. The dB is the standard that we use to measure noise.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Just when I saw everything in the tech report, I was like, that is very technical. Even as an engineer, I'm like, that is very technical. Okay. Last question. The neighbors that are directly to the south of this, and right, especially looking at the picture where the hydrogen tank itself will be, what was the outreach there? What's the neighborhood feedback? Do you have any information on that?
Well, I know we did our noticing to some property owners, tenants, residents within a 300-foot radius of the site. Any comments we received, I'm going to rely. I'm not aware of any comments from adjacent property owners. If received, they would have been in your packet.
Okay, and the outreach was we mailed the letters to the address behind them? Or like within X amount of feet? Is that the right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Procedure.
Okay. But we didn't hear anything back. We didn't have any comments from neighbors, and nothing? Okay.
I think when you're living next to such a large intersection, and you've bought or leasing a house at that location, you know what you're in for. I mean, the location's been there since 1960, so and the traffic is that's just part of your neighborhood. Oh, you have more?
No, that's it. Those are my questions. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Ong.
Yeah, going back to the noise, just because you get a posting, with something as new as hydrogen, I think if I had gotten the notice, I wouldn't necessarily know that there was the issue was noise. Although, I will put some trust in what is in the report, we had, it was thrown out, of restricting hours, but, if it's not that significant, then that probably, you probably wouldn't want to restrict it right off the bat, because once you restrict it, it's hard to unrestrict it. You have to come back. But what I'd like to understand, this is a question for staff, is could there be a condition that if there were complaints that hours of operation could be revisited?
You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Would it just be with respect to noise, or just any complaint, or?
Well, let's see. If it were with the hours, limiting hours, I think it would be noise, but I'm not exactly sure, what other issues there were, unless you have another Hindenburg going on.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
Very bad joke.
But
Too soon.
yeah. But I just want to make sure that without restricting it right off the bat, having enough teeth that says, hey, if it does become an issue, that it can be revisited.
I mean, we could craft something to that effect. I've got a condition I'm working on for that. I was just looking if we had a catch-all already in here.
I do recall we did something similar, didn't we, with the music school?
Yes, I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me,
Yeah, and you know, there's other stations being put in, and so there must be some history. You know, if other stations that have gone around in, say, the South Bay or the greater LA area, there's obviously a lot of stations built and are in construction. So, you know, if it's an issue, obviously it would have come up.
Well, we don't know where they were built and how close, residents were. It's again, I'm not here to restrict it right off the bat, but I think we need to have some sort of, condition that allows hours to be looked at if it doesn't, if it's not quite as benign as we're thinking it is. That's just my concern. I'm thinking about those residents. And again, if there's no noise issue, then it will never be exercised.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bird, you had
No, my question was asked.
Okay, all right. Well, if there's any other, I think we're going to give Mr. Whittingham another chance to voice himself. If you can.
So I emailed him actually, and I confirmed he's just in attendance. He didn't wish to speak.
Okay, all right. Well, then maybe then it's time to close. Have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Godek, and a second from
Second.
Commissioner Bird. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, so ordered. Okay, so we deliberate now.
Yeah. I have sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Is it okay if I go first?
Yes, please.
Apologies. Yeah, I like the project. I'm in favor of the alternate fuel. The owner of electric car, I think this is fantastic. I like reusing our fuel stations, and I have my main concern is the neighbors in the back, and I don't think there's any issue with hydrogen fueling, but I think one day they're going to wake up and see a hydrogen tank in their backyard and might freak out. So that's one concern I have. And then the second concern I have is that our conditions, I have no idea how to condition a hydrogen fueling station, and I appreciate what the staff did to put the conditions together, but I am nervous because it's difficult for me to know what are the correct conditions or not, and what are the safety standards of hydrogen. So those are my two main concerns, but I'd like to hear the commissioner's concerns.
Someone else?
Okay. If there's no others, are there any other concerns? If not, I'd like to see then if there's any feedback from the commissioners on. I'd like to do more outreach to the people that live behind it, just so that they can get aware and comfortable with what's coming before it's put in. If there's any interest in doing more outreach or asking the applicant to do outreach to the neighbors behind more than just sending a letter.
Well, they have been notified. No, we did close the public hearing, but I think
They've been notified twice.
they've been notified.
Once by us separately from the city and once by the city.
Yeah.
And ours was back in February. They've had since February to make comments.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. So I think what we've done as a city and what the applicant has done is fair. And they're already living, at a gas station at one of the busy intersections of, I mean, that's the choice they made when they bought. So I think we've done our due diligence, if you will, both the applicant and the city for this. So, any other comments or things to deliberate? If not, then we'll need to make a motion. Commissioner Godek.
Yeah, I agree that this is a good project for this site. It seems like it was thoughtfully designed and it's a great location. Busy roads are perfect for it. So yeah, I'm liking everything I'm seeing about it.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, maybe we'll, Commissioner Berg.
Yeah, just a little bit more about my conversation with the owner. He really is trying to get ahead of the curve on this. The owner of the land, get ahead on the curve of moving away from fossil fuels. So I was pretty impressed with that. And, the property is pretty immaculate for a corner gas station on a busy intersection. The owner has really, I wish he were here because he really has maintained the place. He's put a whole hell of a lot of money into it, into the convenience store. There's a little patio on the backside if, you can go and eat. When I was there, a lot of the Athens service drivers pulled in and went over and had their lunch over there. So, and I think it's a really good project myself.
All right. Well, if everybody's happy, then I will need a motion from someone.
There are the conditions that other commissioners are considering.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have a condition, related to, not to restrict the hours, but if there are any complaints to that, it can be, I don't know what the typical protocol is. Does it go back to the planning commission for review?
Yeah, you retain jurisdiction, but I do have a condition maybe I could share with the commission if you want to take a look at that. I think addresses Commissioner Ung's concern.
Yes, please do. Because I know we've done this in the past.
Right.
Inserted this type of language, and I'm not sure where in the body it will go. So we would just add an extra condition.
Yes, and disregard these down here. I was working on a couple of others that seem to be popping up, but this would be condition number 25 at the end. If complaints are received concerning the operation, and I could put of the hydrogen fuel station. Including but not limited to noise, hours of operation, and other limitations may be applied to the project.
Yes.
May be applied to the project as determined by the community development director.
That sounds good.
Is that
okay with that, Commissioner Ung?
Yeah, that would address my concern.
Okay. Commissioner Berg?
Are there, I guess this is for staff, have there been complaints about the standard fuel delivery that's there? I mean, are people complaining over the years about that? And is there a conditional use on when that can be delivered, or is that just what the the owner of the property decides? What's been there before?
Yeah, we currently don't have restrictions on the delivery or the operation other than the original conditions for the station. Unfortunately, I don't have those handy. Those, I think they were included with your package.
In general, gasoline delivery isn't too noisy because gravity does the work. So, when you start getting into pumps and compressors, that's when the noise factors come in. But if you, other than the truck's air brakes, letting gasoline, flow by gravity from the tank into the ground is pretty quiet. My dad owned a gas station, so I'm aware of that.
Ah,
Okay.
all right.
And I was just reviewing the resolution for the CUP for the gas station. It did not have that restriction for the hours of hours of delivery.
Do CUPs need to be forever? I mean, if they don't get a complaint in the next couple of years, 10 years, you have somebody that has oversensitive ears and, Superman moves in. I don't know. I mean, is that going to put them in a bad position later on?
I wouldn't think so. It just is an additional protection. If the concern comes up, we have an ability to negotiate and navigate that issue.
Yeah, and if per the resolution, if there's any disputes, so if say there were complaints and I was able to evaluate those and substantiate that there's an issue, and I imposed as the director, I imposed a restriction on the hours of operation. If the owner had issue with it, they could, that the jurisdiction goes back to the Planning Commission. So any dispute on that would go back to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
I would definitely, I can only speak for myself as the director. I mean, I won't be here in perpetuity
Right.
as the director. At some point I may retire, but there, certainly in the time that I would, what my practice would be is to evaluate it, to look at it's not just, it's a complaint, but actually going out and substantiating it, making sure that they're, seeing what that noise is, see if there's any other way that it might be able to be addressed. And then if necessary, impose, it wouldn't be something like, 7 p.m. because it'll interrupt somebody's dinner, but really it's about when that nighttime, ambient noise reduces, making sure that it was addressing that.
Okay. And so just to reconfirm, the only time this thing really is going to make noise is after somebody's finished fueling. So this CUP could be, limit hours of operation. That doesn't mean that it's still going to come on at 2:00 in the morning because no one's used it in a week and it's got to vent something or it's got to cool something.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think we might be ready to have someone make a motion with a condition number 25 added to the resolution.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I make a motion to approve an exemption declaration, conditional use permit, planning commission design review, and variance to allow the installation and operation of a new hydrogen fueling station and related equipment and an existing service station on property located within a commercial C2 zone at 2714 Artesia Boulevard, with the 6 findings and 25 conditions as stated in the staff report.
Okay, do we have a second?
24 and the 25th one. Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Godek is a second, and then I will take a roll call. Commissioner Hensley. Commissioner
Yes.
Hensley? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Ung?
Yes.
Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So congratulations, the motion passes, and it's new ground being broken in Redondo Beach, literally for the new world. And we're all going to be on our apps trying to figure out where to go because we don't know where to go because there's no sign to tell us hydrogen. But,
Hydrogen buddy.
yeah, exactly. So wonderful, and thank you to Mr. Steckler, and I see Mr. Fiedler, who's the engineering firm, and I believe also Mr. Hoban is also on the project. So thank you so much for really helping, and also staff and a planner, Stacy Kinsella, for preparing such a comprehensive report for us, because this is literally new ground for the city. And I'll be asking at the recommendations for staff, you know, what the city has plans for hydrogen vehicles, because if they're giving away free money at the state level, we can up that 0.6% by having the city get some vehicles, and we'll know just where to go charge those vehicles. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So now we will move to the public hearing for the 2323 Clark Lane project. So I would like to open the hearing, the public hearing for this particular item. So a motion.
A motion to open the public hearing.
First by Commissioner I, and a second. I need a second for opening public hearing. Commissioner Godek seconds. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, so we have the open. So now, if those persons who are going to be speaking to this project, if you will be, if you could please take the oath, do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So we'll need voice confirmation. I'm sorry?
We do.
We do, okay. And is Mr. You will also speak on, so we just have the two people speaking, okay. All right, well, thank you so much for that. So we will go ahead and take testimony from staff and applicants and the interested parties.
Yes, I'd like to introduce our senior planner, Antonio Gardea. He's going to do the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Forbes. So this item, it's not as exciting as the item that you just saw, I know, but it's also important. This is a variance that the commission is considering tonight, and an exemption declaration. It's for the required rear setback. And this is an item that there was a variance that was granted. It's outlined in the staff report back in 2014. The variance that was granted back then was for a setback of 4 feet 2 inches, but the owners couldn't, they didn't move forward and didn't effectuate the permit within the allowable 3-year window. So that permit expired, and they'd have to come back and reapply for a similar project, which is what we had before you tonight. The property is zoned as R2. It's 50 feet wide and 90 feet long. It's about 4,500 square feet in size. The property is non-conforming in terms of lot size, lot depth, both. So it does have some particular constraints there. And those play a key role in the application for the variance. There is some slight topography from east to west and north to south. And you'll see that kind of more evident in some of the pictures. Again, the property is not just legal non-conforming in terms of the size and length, but it's also non-conforming in terms of the parking, because the house and garage was built in the 1950s. And this is a couple of pictures of the site as it exists today. The picture in the corner, the top right corner, is from the front of the property, and which is Clark Lane. And then the main picture there that you see is from the McKay side. So we have here the existing site plan and proposed site plan side by side, and I'm going to go through the development standards and what happens when there's a project like this proposed. Now, the main factor or the main driver for this project and what was constraining the layout is the desire to provide a standard 2-car garage with a driveway that could accommodate 2 more parking spaces for a total of 4 off-street parking spaces. And that's really kind of there's some zoning constraints that limit what can happen when you try and get a standard garage on the property. And this is, again, this shows the existing site as it is today. And I'm going to go through and kind of illustrate some of the setbacks. So the first thing is that we have some side, front, and rear setback requirements. And when you have a detached structure, it can actually be placed within that required rear setback. It can actually go all the way to the property line. And so that's kind of why you have this detached structure towards the back in that rear, the required rear yard. So long as you have a 5-foot minimum distance between the principal residence and the detached structure. That's our basic requirement for setbacks when it comes to detached structures in the house. What happens when you have a corner property is that most of the time you have the interior side setback, which is this side. This serves as really their private rear yard, and this is their outdoor usable open space. And right now, because of the dimensions and the space from the all the way from the front all the way to the back, this is roughly about 1,000 square feet in area. When you place the garage, the 2-car garage on the property, there's a couple of constraints. And the first thing is you have a width constraint of 18 feet. And so because of the rear setback, that pushes that building from here this way. You have an 18-foot interior minimum clear dimension. So typically you have a 19-foot wide structure, and that pushes into this rear setback because you just can't get a 2-car garage without going into that. And that was evident the last time when the applicant applied before, when they obtained the other variance in 2014. So it's a very similar situation. But in this case, they're coming forward, and it's two stories. So this is the part where it does encroach into that rear setback. It's a 15-foot rear setback, and so that's where the structure goes into or juts into that required rear setback. Again, one of the main driver here, because they did look at a variety of different layouts, was getting the 2 spaces in the driveway. And initially, they had come in with a proposal for substandard setback. The zoning code does require that the garage be 19 feet from the front property line. And this shows kind of an overhang, but the parking space would be underneath here. The 2 parking spaces in the driveway, in addition to the 2 parking spaces inside the garage. We do allow you to have the structure at the setback line. And the reason why we would allow it at the setback line is because it would discourage someone from parking and overhanging into the sidewalk. And that's why we have that 19 feet from the property line, so that you're not overhanging and obstructing somebody who's walking or trying to get through from along McKay. So like I said, we went back and forth with the applicant a number of times. We explored a variety of options, and ultimately the applicant decided that this would be the most desirable, not just for them, but it would be the least impactful to the surrounding community. This shows the layout of the first floor and the second floor. And this does give you an idea of the site constraints and why they had to design this way. You have the 2 bedrooms in the back, and it's very difficult to have a second-story structure that's interconnected with the building without doing some substantial changes to the layout. And so that's the reason why they have it laid out the way they laid it out. Also, my understanding, and the applicant can confirm this, is that while for the immediate time frame, the applicant is looking to use the addition as an office, long term, they would be interested in having that serve as an ADU. So that's kind of the long-term plan here for that space. And mind you, I just want to to just touch really quickly on the ADUs. I'm going to go back to the existing floor plan. The ADUs, we really need to think of this as an addition, because an ADU would be allowed, and it wouldn't come before the planning commission if they just wanted to put it in place of where the garage would be. They would be allowed to place a 650 square foot ADU in this location, and you wouldn't see it. It would go straight to the building division. And so just keep that in the back of your mind in your deliberations. So that's kind of the gist of what the project is all about. Like I said, the main thing that they were looking at is getting some extra parking, being able to park on their driveway, being able to park in the garage if necessary, as well. And that's kind of what drove the design here. Now, as I mentioned, the property does slope downward from the front towards the back, going from south to north. And so that's kind of why you have this, the pad, the finished floor of the garage is down here, and then you step up, because it is on a raised foundation, you step up to the floor above. And that's kind of why it has this kind of feel of kind of a more vertical structure. You can kind of get a sense here. Now, the applicant, we worked with them quite a bit, and we tried to make sure that there wasn't going to be any windows or overlooking the neighbors, because we're very sensitive to potential privacy impacts. So we talked to them quite a bit about that, minimize the number of windows on the sides and the rear. In particular, we also we understand that there was the desire to have a balcony. We want the balcony to be facing towards the street and away from the neighbors. And they've done that. We feel that the design is comparable to other properties in the surrounding vicinity. And so with that, we're recommending approval. So staff recommending that we open the public hearing and accept public testimony and adopt the resolution, finding that the addition is exempt from CEQA, there's a categorical exemption, and approve the variance for the rear yard setback. And again, there's the applicant is available to answer questions. We did receive one letter and in response to this item. And I don't know if there's any people, if you could let me know if there's anyone here to speak other than the applicant.
Yes, there are two people signed up to speak on this item, and then we have 2 e-comments as well.
Fantastic. So then I think that's that, and that's the last picture that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this point.
Okay, thank you so much for a very well detailed presentation. So it's open for discussion here. Do the commissioner have any questions for staff or?
I know it's not as exciting as the other items. So.
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Ung.
It's more humdrum.
That's okay, Antonio. I'll make it exciting. No. No.
You're getting nervous.
That's right. No. In 2014, did that application include the second story?
No, Commissioner, that did not include the second story. It was a single story addition, but it was for the garage. Now, had the applicant gone through and effectuated that and built the garage, that would entitle them to that rear yard setback. Mm-hmm. So they could then come forward and build a second story as long as they follow that same building line that's established.
Okay, because I seem to recall when we were going through the ADUs, and I can't remember because we went through it and then the laws changed, so we had to do it a second time. Where did we end up as far as maximum height? Because I seem to recall the height, what we didn't want to have done is to, have big giant ADUs, very tall ADUs on top of garages. And I just wanted, if you could verify what we listed as the maximum height.
Yeah, so if you recall, we actually did bring this a couple of times to the Planning Commission, and that was one of the things that we actually had recommended initially, is to allow two-story ADUs over garage as long as they were keeping the parking spaces. That went forward at the City Council. They disagreed with staff and the commission, and they reduced the height down to 16 feet for detached accessory structures. And in this case, the structure is attached, so it's all one primary building. And so it's subject to the height limitation of the primary building, which is 30 feet.
And also there's the advantage that the garage is on the lower part of the property, so that mitigates a little bit the height as well.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure, I seem to recall all these rules, but it kept moving, so I could never figure out where it ended up. So this one.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
I would say so in this particular case, because we've eliminated that 5-foot gap between the primary structure and the garage, it now qualifies as an attached garage.
Right. So once you join the structure, it's considered one building, and so it's no longer detached. It has to. We have the limitation on the detached structures when there's that minimum 5-foot separation, because those detached structures can be right at the property line. Remember I was telling you that as long as they have that 5-foot separation, the garage can be right at the corner. And so being right at the corner, there was concerns that people would be overlooking into other people's yards and that type of thing, and that the impact would be greater. And so we understood that, and we went with the height limitation that was allowed by the state, which eventually became 16 feet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Do we want to hear from the applicant? Would the applicant wishes to speak?
Yes, we do. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read. Hello to the Planning Commission members and Planning Department staff. My name is Stuart Hoffman, and this is my wife, Chicago Hoffman. Give you a brief history about us. We've moved to Redondo Beach approximately 7 years ago. We had planned to renovate and modernize the 1950s Cotto-style house and add a 2-car garage to it. Construction projects being what they are, we were only able to afford redoing the house, and we were unable to move forward with the garage portion using the variance we had received back in 2014. Luckily, we are now able to continue with our original 2-car garage plan. The past year has also made us realize that our 900 square foot house is not enough space for both of us who are now working from home full time, and it looks like that will be permanent. So we are planning on putting a 2nd-story ADU on the garage. We feel our project will benefit Redondo Beach by not demolishing the small ranch-style cottages that are becoming too rare in our neighborhoods. The location of the project makes sense without disrupting the front and side yards we use daily to enjoy our dogs and meet our great neighbors. Our neighbors also feel that this is a project that is beneficial to the community. Many have expressed their support and think our variance application should be approved and our project allowed. The Doe family, who live directly next door and north of our property, have also expressed their support for our project. There are many others that are supporting us as well, and among them are, and excuse me if I don't pronounce your last names right, but Lon and Sandra Doe, Annie Cervantes, Mercedes Temprano, Bert and Robin Pratt, Ushan DeSandes, Bruno and Tiffany Conte, Andres and Jenny Wagner. Some neighbors stopped by and asked if we were leaving after seeing the official yellow sign for this hearing staked in our front yard of our house. Usually that sign means that 2 townhomes are going to go up after a single family residence has been sold. It was nice to hear how glad they were that we were not moving, only hoping to make better use of our property. Our project will also add parking in a densely packed neighborhood. There are no parking spots on one side of McKay Lane next to our house. So that poses additional parking challenges for people. Our project will provide 4 parking spaces, 2 spots in the garage, and 2 in the driveway. In closing, we ask the commission to consider our request for the variance. Our family loves Redondo Beach and the neighborhood we live in. We definitely are in need of more space for better work-life balance, and we feel this project makes sense for us and the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak?
You do have members of the public here to speak. So let me call on them. So the first one is Bruno Conti.
Okay.
Bruno, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Bruno Conte from 2423, just a block down the road. I think this is great for the community for several different reasons. As Stuart mentioned, the parking being so close to the school does get pretty busy, so this is going to really help. Any additional spots are they're good. And 2, styling or design is subjective, but I do think the plans that he has do look good. It's going to improve the look of the lot, and it will fit nicely into the community. And number 3, I think it's going to complement a new hydrogen station that's going in around the corner. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. And then next speaker, Rolf Strutzenberg. Rolf, go ahead.
Good evening, planning commissioners. How good to see you all.
Good evening.
I went ahead and looked through this because I'm still interested in these things. And the thing that was missing here was, and I don't know what was in the staff possession, because I'm sorry, I just tuned in. I was on the SoCal Rock board now. So we just wrapped our board meeting for that. But the big thing that was standing out, and I talked to Commissioner Hensley about this, was that it is an ADU, it is height restricted, and the way the resolution is written kind of doesn't really, it sort of addresses it, but doesn't really. And what you're doing here is you are granting if you were to grant a variance to that for the ADU above a garage, which is something we fought hard not to do, that you would be creating a new precedent for this. And this could be relied upon then, because I forget the word, I'm trying to look back through the agenda here real quick as I open it up. But it's an exception that you're creating that could then be used for others, and that is of concern. So again, I apologize, I didn't catch the earlier part of this. That's the whole key thing. The rest of it, the project, yeah, no problem. But the fact that it's an ADU above a garage, which is something we worked very hard to restrict and not allow, and you are allowing that, and your names will be attached to it. So I'll stop with that. It's just, that's the concern here.
All right. Thank you for that.
And good to see you all.
Thank you. Does staff want to comment on that?
Actually, I'll speak to that. So this applicant can do an addition on their house. They have the additional square footage available to them. They could do that above their house, a portion of their house now, and then convert it to an ADU. This is if you choose to go this route, their interest, or they could do a detached ADU and have the height restriction. The height restriction when it's an addition and then converted to an ADU is the height of what's permitted for the main structure, which is the 30 feet. So they could still do that and just do that, extension onto their house, and have the separate single car garage. In this, what they're looking to do is they do want to have the ADU. They could convert their garage to an ADU and actually even expand it, and then lose all the parking. I think here they're looking to find something that's a middle ground where they, instead of doing the extension on the house structure itself, they're attaching the garage and doing it in that manner so that they can maintain the parking. they can do that. They can do that addition on their house as it is now, or they could, bring it. The issue is they could also do a separate ADU, excuse me, and convert their parking that they have currently to an ADU.
Okay, thank you for that. That's what the planning commission is here for. If there's more people that come later and it doesn't sit properly, it's not going to get passed. So, Commissioner Hensley.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are two more e-comments.
Oh, there are. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, I know, that's okay. And then that way we could just wrap up the public.
Thank you. Yes,
and they're brief. Sure. So the first one is from Sandra Nguyen. Hello, Redondo Beach Council members. I live next door to Stewart and Chicago Hoffman at 1305 McKay Lane and have no objections to their request to construct a new attached two-car garage with a second-story addition above. The remodeling of their property over the past few years have added value to the neighborhood, and I believe that these proposed changes will continue to do so. So that's the first comment. And then the second comment, Jennifer Wagner. I like the change from one-car to two-car garage so they can park cars on their private property instead of street parking. I have no concerns at all. And that concludes the e-comments.
Okay, very good. All right. Do the applicants wish to add something?
Yeah, if I could. I just was curious. Mr. Schwarzenberg was saying that there's never been an ADU built in Redondo Beach above a garage. I think that's...
If I may, I don't think he said there hasn't been one built. His point was that the regulations as were adopted don't allow it over a detached garage.
Well, yeah, and he's saying a detached garage, and this would be precedent, but my understanding that there was a house on Elvira Street with a garage where an ADU was allowed. Am I mistaken on that?
That was before our ordinance was adopted.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Commissioner Hensley?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tupper. I have a couple questions for staff. Can I get, again, an explanation on the second floor addition versus ADU? I know you've done it, already explained twice, but one more time, why is this an addition to the house when it's over the garage?
So if it's attached, then it's an addition to the house. So, and it's addition to the square footage that they have in that house. If it was the garage was remaining detached and they wanted to build above it, now they could request this garage and whether or not you would approve it, and then they could come in and do an addition, and that would not require the same variance for that. They wanted to come in with everything they're looking to do. They could also do that addition on top of their existing house and leave their garage the way it is, or they could convert their ADU. So when it's an addition and it's to their house, then they can convert any portion of their house to an ADU. Okay, and if the variance was granted for the garage like it was in 2014, if I got the year right, could they build an ADU over the attached garage? Yes. They could build an extension. It may have it would have whatever the setbacks that are approved. Okay. And the variance part of the garage is the fact that this lot is 90 feet long versus a standard 100-foot lot, and that's why they don't have the setback. Is that
right? Typically, there's a couple of things that come into play here. One is that this is an R2 lot, and most of the R2 lots are 150 feet long. This lot was subdivided, and a portion of it was more than typical. So they ended up with a 90-foot depth rather than a standard 100-foot depth. So that's why it's substandard in terms of size. But yeah, the property is not the typical length. Had it been 100 feet deep, they have that extra 10 feet. They could do their two-car garage attached and could have that 15-foot separation. But
okay, so then they wouldn't need a variance if they had a 100-foot lot, is that right?
if they had 100, they would not need a variance. The other thing to consider is that the property is set back a substantial distance from the front, in addition to the required setback.
Mhm.
And that's also shown in the, I kind of showed that. I didn't point that out in my presentation, but that is another factor here.
Okay. In the staff report, it showed in the neighborhood 5 other variances or other approvals that have been in the past.
Yes.
Can I get a very brief summary of those projects? Not in any great detail, but were they one floor? Were they variances? What
most of them
exactly
were
like
2
this?
stories. Yeah, most of them were 2 stories. Some were for, I remember one in particular was for like a balcony or patio, like that extended out towards the back. A lot of them are because they're corner lots and the particular way that they were developed. So that's an issue, and you saw this with the other property that we looked at sometime. I think it was last year, actually.
Or by Franklin Park somewhere, right?
It was on Fisk, and I can't remember what the other street was. But you saw that again. Yeah, we saw that with that one as well. But it's the corner lots that have this particular situation where you have the garage that is accessed from the exterior side street. And so that's why we see these more often.
Okay. Were any of the other projects in the neighborhood 5-foot variances with building over the garage?
I'd have to go back and take a look at those specific staff reports. I can't recall which ones.
Okay. And if the 2nd-story addition is approved and they turn it in, they use it, if it's used as the ADU in the future, could another owner then convert the 2-car garage to another ADU? Could they have a second ADU on this lot? Or ADU or something else? If the top unit is not considered an ADU, could someone, not the applicant, just somebody, turn the garage into an ADU?
There's particular rules with multifamily properties, and I can't recall off the top of my head if they would be allowed to have a junior ADU if they already have an ADU. I don't think so, but I'd have to look into that for a little bit further. But
I thought it was 1 on a single family, but 2, like you could have multiple on.
No, it's different. It's for the single family, you're actually allowed to have a detached ADU and a junior ADU. So for the R1 lots, that's allowed. There's the multifamily, that's a little bit more recent, and while there's some flexibilities with that, there's also more restrictions. And so there's particular rules when it talks about multifamily properties or multifamily zone properties. And in there, it's either 25% of the number of units on the site or 1 ADU. I think that's the way that it's written. So in this case, they would already have the 1 ADU and wouldn't be able to do another one.
Right. It would have had to have been detached, in which case they wouldn't have the space for that.
Right. That's correct. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Brandy.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I see another hand up. So maybe I have one other question on the outdoor living space. Let me collect my thoughts for a moment. So Sarah, can you come back to me in just a little bit?
Yeah, I actually probably should address that. I did have a conversation with the commissioner about the outdoor usable open space, in particular decks and patios. And in many of the R2 properties, they have been developed, especially like the 2 on the lots, with especially for the ones that are narrower, the 40-foot wide lots, they would develop the front unit, Unit A, with a notch out on the side and use that as their outdoor usable open space. So we would grant them, or they were allowed to have, as long as it's accessed from a common area, like a family room or dining room or living room, we would grant them the 200% bonus if they had a certain size. And so the larger size patio that you have, the larger bonus you would get. And so that's been pretty common for the R2 properties. And I know that you had asked that question, Commissioner Hensley, so I just wanted to kind of reassure the rest of the commissioners that that is something that we do grant on a regular basis, or that we do allow.
Okay, and do they have a patio out there thing, or is it a grassy yard?
It's
You know, and if the applicant can answer.
I have a picture that shows it, but maybe the applicants can kind of describe what state it's in right now.
Sure.
It's in a horrible state right now. We've been waiting since 2014 to get this garage done, and so it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to develop that kind of side yard without knowing what was going to happen out there yet. So right now it's in a rough state.
Okay. Would it be dirt or partial grass, or is it actual concrete pad?
No, we don't want to, we don't want to put concrete in there. We have dogs, and that's not good. So we're going to put some sort of maybe like an artificial turf or something back there, plants, stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, and the concern I brought up with staff was, you know, we went through the whole outdoor living space a few months ago, and that's why it kind of caught my attention when it got a bonus for being a yard. So when I read the code, I read it as, you know, only balconies not attached can get the bonus. So, but anyway, we can let me think about it a little more. So
yeah,
that's it. All right, thank you.
Okay, is there any more discussion? If not, I guess I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Sorry, if there's no other questions, I got to get my questions in before we close the public hearing. Oh man. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna have to think on the fly here. The outdoor living space, if you only count the side yard, is insufficient without the bonus. Did I read the staff report right?
Yeah, it's the actual yard area is about 550 square feet, somewhere in that vicinity, close to 600 maybe. But we only count, we don't count very narrow areas, 5 foot wide areas and those types of things, because you can't really put a chair or a table on there and stuff like that. So that's why we have a minimum 10-foot dimension, where that's the only portion of it that we actually count as your outdoor usable open space. Even though there might be extra yard area, we can't count it out. I mean, like I said, there's space in front of the front yard that is outside of the setback. We can't count that because it's only, you know, let's say 7 feet wide or 5 feet wide. So we don't, we discount that part of it.
So there is space, but it can't be counted because it's a front setback, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, one last question on the addition versus the house. Is there a connection or a path between the second floor addition and the current existing house? Is there a door or a hall or some connection?
Yeah, there's an interior connection, but you have to exit out from the garage to get into the house. And that's because of where the bedrooms are located.
Okay, so from the second floor addition, you have to exit, go downstairs through the garage to the side yard.
There's actually
into
two
the
doors. Yeah, there's actually two doors.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's one door on the north side and one door on the south side, and you can exit into the garage and then go out the south door, or exit out the north door.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else? Going? Okay, I would like to have a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Motion to close the public hearing.
By Commissioner Godek, and a second by Second by Commissioner Hensley. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. So now we have our deliberation on this item.
No comment?
No comment?
No comment.
Well, then in that case, then maybe it's time for a motion. You want to come forth with the motion for this?
I just want to, this is to Antonio. It's in relation to thoughts that by approving this, it could set a precedence. I think there are unique circumstances for this particular case, such that if someone wanted to do it, it would have to come before the planning commission, and it would have to stand on its own merits. Is that kind of a true statement?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and
want to put some kind of a language to say that this is a special condition, so that it stands out as a special condition rather than a precedent. I mean, that's something we could add. I don't know. Maybe Director Forbes, you have some ideas on special language we could put in there to discourage precedent?
I think the issue is with every variance, it's based on the merits of that particular case.
Right.
It has to meet the criteria of the variance, and then you have to review the project to see that it meets the findings that you have found in that resolution. So it's not something where all of a sudden now everybody's going to come in and no matter what their conditions on their property are, they could come in and build something above a garage. They have to meet the standards of the ADU ordinance, and they would have to, if it's in a circumstance like this, they'd have to meet the criteria for a variance and have the findings made.
Yeah, thank you, Director Forbes. I think that.
Yeah, and again, Chair Toporo, I just want to remind you again that this is the second time that the Planning Commission considers a variance for this property. It was granted in the past, and the findings are very similar. The lot is substandard in length, and there are physical constraints that prevent them from the use of their property as other owners have in the similar zoning. So that's really the key. And any other case like this would have to come before the Planning Commission. I know that there are some provisions that allow us to do modifications administratively. Commissioner Hensley did note that there were a number of variances that came before the Planning Commission, but one of the cases that was cited in the staff report is a modification permit, but those are typically for less, there are limits on how much they can encroach into the rear setback. It's not possible with this. It just isn't. They don't have the space.
No, and I kind of agree with what your neighbor said. This is a lot better than having two on a lot, having this rather modest addition to the lot. I think it's more in the character of where we want to win our city. So, okay, Commissioner Hensley.
Actually, along those lines, Chair Capro, did the commission make a finding that because this is R2 zoning, or this could be developed as 2 units, something along those lines?
I wouldn't say that because there's a lot of R2 lots that are standard sized. I don't want to use the zoning as the unique circumstance. We want to use the physical layout and topography, the size of the lot as the unique circumstance, not the zoning we don't use. I would about that.
Sorry, let me clarify then. I understand the point. The 5-foot variance for the garage is okay because the lot is not standard size. That's clear in my mind, and I would grant a variance for the garage just like they did in 2014. What I'm struggling with is we're basically granting a second unit, and that's what I'm trying to tie to the fact that somebody could come here and build 2 units, right? So you're really no different off. Couldn't someone come and build 2?
No, because it's substandard in size. You need at least 5,000 square feet. Actually, more than 5,000 square feet in order to get 2 on a lot. And this is for about 4,500 square feet in size. So no, you couldn't get 2 on a lot on this property. In fact, it was probably subdivided, and the property next door is or may have been at some point, the second property on the R2 lot. So it wouldn't be possible. We actually restrict that. That's in our zoning ordinance.
Okay. Any other commissioner any more comments or a motion to go forward?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission approving the exemption declaration and granting the request for a variance for a reduced rear yard setback to allow the construction of a new two-car garage with second story above attached to the main residence on property located in low-density multiple family residential R2 zone at 2323 Clark Lane with the findings and conditions noted in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Ung. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Godak. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Hensley?
No, and I'd like to state for the record that I would grant a variance for the garage, but this is an ADU over the garage and it's not attached to the house, so I don't believe I can't make the finding, so I vote no.
Okay, Commissioner Godak?
Yes.
Commissioner Ung?
Yeah, I'm voting yes, and it's only because of the various circumstances as the staff has communicated.
Okay, Commissioner Burke?
I'm voting yes, and I agree with Commissioner Ung, based on what staff has recommended with those restrictions that are on the property, and also to keep the charm of those 1950s houses.
And I will also vote yes and echo Commissioner Ung's comment. So, so the motion passes. Congratulations. I think it's going to be a very nice space for you to live in and keep within the character of the neighborhood. And again, it's lovely to see your neighbors support you. This is really the type of project when we see the community come together and the neighbors really supporting the projects is, I think, makes our jobs a lot easier as planning commissioners to see the neighborhood behind you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you all for this and all my neighbors that did voice their opinions.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. I've got my. All right. So that is item J2. And thank you to Senior Planner Gardea for all the lovely detail that we received. I don't believe we have any items continued from previous agendas. And items for discussion prior to action. I don't believe we have anything. Items from staff. Nothing.
I did want to share on Tuesday evening, the city council did make a motion for a land use plan. They took some recommendations from GPAC. They took some recommendations from Planning Commission, and they had some of their own decisions that they made. So the land use plan, draft land use plan will be moving forward, and we'll be moving forward with a housing element. So thank you all for your hard work last month. I know we went late in that conversation, but just so you know, it's paid off and we're moving forward.
I still hope that we do some kind of a legal action that we don't have, as a city, that we don't have to take what the state forces on us. So I'm hoping we will join with other cities on that. Any commissioner items and referrals to staff? Commissioner Hensley?
Nope, nothing for me.
Commissioner Godek?
Nope.
Commissioner Ung?
No.
Commissioner Berg?
No.
Okay, for myself, I would like to recommend that we, who buys vehicles for the city of Redondo Beach in the city infrastructure?
I want to say that it's through our Public Works Department.
Public Works?
Mhm.
And so they've been involved with this project, right? Because I'm thinking if there's a lot of free money out there for hydrogen vehicles that, you know, as a city, if we need new vehicles, then maybe we should be ponying up to this cash cow here. I mean, just to put it bluntly, you know? So there might be some nice opportunities that we can become leaders in, you know, the new fuel economy. So I guess I would like to make a recommendation that we kind of drop the bug, if staff could drop the bug in Public Works ear to look into this, that this project was approved by the Planning Commission and just to keep their antennas up. Okay, and then the other thing was...
real quick, Chair, we want to make sure that just if that's a referral, just if there's somebody who can second and then just confirm that that'll.
Oh, it's just a recommendation. I mean, it's.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we need to formally, you know, say you must do this.
Okay.
But I think it would be nice if one of you could pass the information along, because I think it would be a very nice, you know, financially advantageous to the city, especially when we're looking at tight budgets and things like that. And this is money which is, you know, available. The other was with, I wanted to echo Mrs. Osborne's concern about the SB 478 and the 778 Senate bills. And I know that she had sent a letter about recommendation that the staff write letters to the senator to that effect. So I guess I'd like to recommend that we act upon that.
Just so you're aware, we have the City Council adopted a resolution in opposition of any Senate or Assembly bills that take away that local control on zoning. So, and we have our lobbyist, our state lobbyist, who presents that when there are bills like this. So we'll make sure that that he's aware that we want to make sure these bills are addressed.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. All right. And then the last item is that I think we do have much more homework to do on open space. I think we just kind of cut our teeth on part of it. And, I think there's more work to do on the ordinance.
We need to take that to the City Council, and to be fair, we've been working on the land use plan, so we haven't had, the City Council hasn't had the room on their agenda. So we do have that to take back to the City Council, the recommendation that the Planning Commission made.
Okay, I just want to be sure that we kind of continue this effort for the other zonings, you know, at a later date, that it's something that, you know, will be brought up into our agenda after this kind of settles down a bit. Commissioner Hensley.
Yeah, just a question for Director Forbes. Do you have an idea when that would go to council, roughly?
I don't have it scheduled at this point. We have all of our meetings in June are dedicated towards the budget. So probably the earliest would be July that it would be taken to the City Council for discussion.
Okay. I'm sorry, that put up another memory. The accessory structure ordinance review by the Planning Commission, do we know when that's going to come back to us?
I'd like to move through the appeal that's before the City Council before there are discussions.
Okay, so maybe July?
We'll check with the, you know, I want to make sure that we get through the required hearings and things that we need to. So we'll look to schedule that as soon as we have that opening in a Planning Commission agenda.
Okay, and perhaps you could let us know by email when it goes to the council so that we know and we could actually participate in that particular council meeting. If you could send out a notice to the commissioners, that would be great.
Yeah. And Sarah Tupper, what next outdoor living space or outdoor topic did you want to discuss? without discussing it tonight, just so we can make a motion to agendize the discussion.
Oh, well, I'm not sure what we should do. We should do next. Maybe commercial zoning.
Okay.
So
So you want to agendize a discussion on the commercial and mixed use outdoor living space?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd second that discussion
Okay, so we have a motion.
by September, or I don't know. We need some date usually.
Yeah,
Not
what
to over.
the schedule accommodates us, because sometimes, we get big whoppers. This was an easy night, but, so I just want to make sure that we keep that going and look at all the different aspects of the code, and, and maybe, staff has recommendations of things that we should be looking at, that, especially in light of open space. Okay, thank you.
I think that we need to take a vote on, Chair.
Yes, yes, Commissioner Hensley,
Yeah.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, well, with that, then we will have someone give a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second from
Second.
Commissioner Ung. Commissioner Hensley,
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself as well, yes. Thank you all so much for
Everyone, it's so nice to be out of here at a reasonable time.
making new ground in the city.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay well, be well.